Welcome back. Mr. Akintobi joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Dio Akintobi is a journalist. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
My pleasure always. Thank God it's Friday.
Where are we heading to from here? You look prepared for us. It's like, I'm going to get this jacket. What do they call this guy?
Straight to the office. It's just that Friday is casual day. That's all.
All right, fantastic. So let's start with this Nigeria, Mr. Akintobi.
Yes.
I want you to binge through 3 stories in quick succession.
Okay.
INEC seeking 873 point something billion for the 2027 general election. The airmax in terms of operations and technology has been listed there as well. Nigeria's oil output rises, but is missing OPEC target yet again. And Fubara dissolving the River State Executive Council.
All right, let's talk about INEC first. I mean, almost 900 billion naira is a humongous amount of money. And as you rightly noted earlier, it's about triple what we spent in 2023. The thing that strikes me when I looked at the breakdown is the fact that they've allocated so much to equipment, and I asked myself, what happened to the stuff we used in 2023? As soon as we use it, does it become obsolete? Why do we have to go and buy all over again? You know, card readers and all the equipment that they used, and probably ballot boxes and every little thing. Why can't we keep those that we used before?
Depreciation, amortization.
And recycle them 4 years later. There's storage places where we can keep them. Why do we have to buy new things all over again? It's the same penchant you see in the National Assembly and the ministries. When they come in, they all have to have new cars, new desks. Aso Rock Villa has to be renovated every time a new person moves in. So it's just this penchant that we have the money, let's spend it. But the way you look at it is that it's not really like we have the money and can afford to spend it, so we can recycle some of those things. So I think there are ways that we can prune down this 900 billion naira expenditure. The thing also that hits me about that is the fact that in spite of that amount of money, we still can't guarantee electronic transmission of results. So what exactly are we spending the money on technology for? Because you can see there's 200 and something odd billion allocated to technology. So what is the technology expected to achieve if the most basic of all the technological requirements we can't guarantee? And like you said, INEC didn't stand up and defend the fact that, okay, if we get this money, we can assure you that we will achieve this in terms of technology. So it's probably just another boondoggle, which is a project by which it's a white elephant type thing that a lot more money has been allocated to it than really needs to be spent. And it's coming at a time when Nigeria can't really afford that kind of expenditure. There are so many other critical sectors that could use infusions of cash. Education, health sector, infrastructure, they're all crying for funds. And at a time like this, we're expending this kind of money on elections. I know we all want free, fair, and credible elections, and it will take some amount of money to do, but I think this is a bit over the top. Now, your second story in terms of OPEC and the oil output, still meeting, we've increased our output, which is good. The restiveness in the Niger Delta has reduced. Pipeline vandalism and oil theft has reduced. Our daily output in terms of the number of barrels we're actually bringing up has increased, but you say we're still missing the OPEC quota, which quite frankly is pitiful. But let's at least give credit to where we're making gains. We're doing better than we were before.
Absolutely.
And that's giving us something to aspire to, that where we have targets, if we continue to ramp up production, we'll eventually get to where we need to be in terms of this. But I think with the Dangote refinery online, its capability, and the news came out just yesterday that it's now up to 650. It has actually reached.
Which is kudos to them.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
So this brings down the price of petrol.
Well, at least we're seeing it in the FX exchange rate. Our exchange rate is now less than 1.13. I think it has even gone to 1.360 or 1.340.
Yes, that refinery is a game changer. It's making ripples in just about every sector. So down the road, we think it'll really make a difference in our lives. And your third story was Fubara on rivers.
Dissolving is a great council.
Well, I mean, there's a saying that the witch cries. Fubara and ex-governor Wike met with the president about 3 or 4 days ago in Abuja, ostensibly for a peace meeting to diffuse reduce the tension that's continuing to pervade the Rivers political space. The president sought to have a truce, and some agreements came out of that meeting, even though they were not disclosed publicly. But to now see this dissolution of the cabinet a few days after, I believe that that is a corollary or an offshoot or an outcome of that meeting. The cabinet was primarily Governor Fubara's people. So for him to have dissolved that cabinet, you read the tea leaves.
You think Wike is now running a third term by proxy?
Well, let's wait and see who is going to reappoint into the cabinet, but I foresee that a lot of Wike's men will come back into that cabinet. I think that was part of the compromise that was reached. I also worry about the State House of Assembly, even though understandings that part of the deal was that they'll call off the impeachment process. But I know Martin Amaewhule is still hostile to Fubara and loyal to Wike. So it's still treacherous days ahead in Rivers State. I don't think, I think Fubara has shown that he's a bit on the weak side in terms of the ability to stand up to for himself. And I think this flip-flopping back and forth doesn't speak very well for him as the frontline leader in Rivers State.
Well, Jeffrey's not so optimistic as far as Rivers is concerned.
I also don't like the fact that a president should be able to tell a governor what to do. I don't like that. I think that a governor in and of itself is an authority unto himself within the confines of his state. And I think that anything that happens in that state is his prerogative. I don't think any outside person, no matter how highly placed, should be able to dictate, even in terms of a compromise. I don't think so.
At the end of the day, all of this is gain for the president. The president knows the game he's playing, and he's very smart with it. So two of them, if they choose to be played, it's up to them. But because I have the next one.
Well, I was saying that as far as Rivers politics is concerned, he's not very optimistic that the dust has settled completely yet, and that they're going to be back, at each other's throats in a couple of months.
Well, Mr. Wike said yesterday, we hope this is the last time we come here to try and resolve this issue, but Jeffrey doesn't believe it is. The jury is still out. Let's wait and see.
I'm even telling you, let me even project more.
Yes.
So that, let me make it worse for you. Whether Fubara comes back or he doesn't come back, it is still not over. Mark today, February the 13th. As long as the players that are still...
Well, that's what you get when you know a place and a people too well. We'll rely on you for further updates from Rivers, Jeffrey. Let's head to the Vanguard newspaper.
I'm proud of my people.
Let's head to the Vanguard newspaper now, and of course, it's a recap of that significant event that took place last night, and that's the celebration of 50 years since the passing of former military head of state, General Murtala Mohammed. And the Vanguard leads with a very compelling position taken by the late general's daughter. 50 years after Murtala Mohammed, my father treated corruption as emergency, not talking point. Of course, that's ascribed to Aisha Murtala Mohammed. And there are a host of writers here, that give us an insight into what more was said at that event. Says he was a soldier, statesman, and our hero at home. Friday, February 13, 1976, that very dark day when he was assassinated during a botched coup, how madmen with guns went on rampage, Mohammed's tomb, not a night to behold. Today's leaders are not selfless like my father. And this is like holding a mirror to oneself and, or a mirror to the elected and saying this is what you look like. I wonder if the message was lost on them. If you also combine that with what the Emir of Kano also said about how Africans need to reflect based on the weight that General Murtala Mohammed pulled as a leader. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's a shame that his life was cut short so tragically, and the general sense is that if he had actually lived much longer and been at the helm of Nigerian affairs for a more extensive period, that Nigeria wouldn't be in the doldrums we're in today, because he came in with a mission. He was a man on a mission. He was a man driven with passion, and in the short time that he was there, he revolutionized our entire polity. He took some bold, courageous steps and fought corruption to a standstill, to some extent that he purged the entire civil service, sacked people, created stiff penalties for corruption, and not just the slap on the wrist we see today. And he even was Pan-African. He spoke out against apartheid and played major roles in terms of speaking out against oppression in other countries. And I remember, many of the people probably watching today probably were too young to remember him then. But I remember that during his tenure, there was orderliness, there was discipline, there was, I mean, you'd see people queuing in lines, drivers were not going one way, all the misbehavior we see today, the chaos, there was orderliness because he was a principled person, and he didn't just talk the talk, he walked the talk. And you could see under his tenure there was no lavishness, the kind of extensive convoys we see today, the private jets, the presidential fleet, or the elaborate living conditions of our leaders. He was very austere, and he eschewed any type of, he was the type of leader who would say, tighten your belt, like we're being told to today, but he tightened his first. So he led by example. And I remember that in their administration, the leaders drove Peugeot 504s. Cars that were assembled in Nigeria, the most basic type of transportation. Granted, his assassination led to a rejigging of the security architecture to better protect our leaders, which of course now expanded things like convoys and entourages and things like that. But the bottom line is what he stood for. He was a beacon of hope. See, terms like renewed hope agenda, they sound like just campaign rhetoric.
Slogans. Yes,
campaign slogans. But the hope that he was selling in those days, or that he was championing in those days, you felt it. It electrified your heart and galvanized your mind to a point that you believed it, because you saw tangible outputs that let you know that these are serious people. And he put Nigeria on a path, on a trajectory of seriousness. And I wish I could foretell and see if he had been there for 8-10 years, where we would be today. But unfortunately his life was cut short. His successor, General Obasanjo, then tried to continue in the path that Murtala had created, and he didn't do so badly in terms of what they set out to do. I mean, it was under the administration that it took us back to politics in 1979, and that was a promise that Murtala made when he came in, that they would set the country in shape and then they would hand back power to us to dictate, to order our own affairs, and the administration did do that. So I think we lost a lot by him not living a long time. I think there are many lessons to be learned from his leadership. I listened to some of the people who spoke yesterday, former Vice President Oshibajo, President Obasanjo, they all spoke at this lecture. Even President Goodluck Jonathan said something to the effect that Nigeria should not allow any leaders over 50 years old. First thing that struck me then was, okay, he's written himself out of this election. Because, for some time there was a speculation that he was going to run. But I agree with that. I think it's time to retire the geriatrics. I think Nigeria needs fresh blood. We need youthfulness. We need creativity. And so Murtala left a lasting legacy. He's somebody we should all be proud of. We should hold in high esteem, and we should honor his memory by contributing our own quota to the upliftment and development of this country the way he saw it 50 years ago.
Something we can never speak too much of. I don't know if this was also a shade at someone saying, Murtala Mohammed didn't treat corruption as a talking point. He treated it as an emergency. So maybe we can just look to recent history and pinpoint those who've been treating corruption as a talking point. Just something to put in the speech. Give it one paragraph. So it's like we speak about it.
Yes.
But let's switch gears now. Look at the Guardian newspaper. And this one, Mr. Kintobi, we need a major conversation on it. Mm-hmm. And it's about the National Assembly tightening grip on public finances amid 2027 election funding debate. For more context, the Accountant General
incidentally also has to defend his own budget.
Yes.
And I like that kind of check and balance. If it works well, if we do it well, governance should be something to cheer about.
Yes.
Because some of these mechanisms are in place, so you don't have all the power. Someone can check and balance you. But anyway, Mr. Akintobi, when the Accountant General, Mr. Ogojim, was before the committee defending, they then asked him and said, you know what, we're actually not going to give you any allocation. In fact, they threatened him with zero allocation. Why? They said, you see, this government always says we have saved trillions from subsidy removal. Yet, contractors have not been paid about 2.2 trillion naira. Secondly, we have lots of people waiting to be paid money. So what exactly is going on? And the Accountant General says, well, it's not entirely my fault. First, the Ways and Means, which we used to have, is no more there. And for the first time, I saw someone arguing in favor of Ways and Means, in public, that is. Then secondly, he said, you know, we have issues with our software as well. There was some glitch and all of that. But one thing is clear, Mr. Akintobi, something is not right in this government. Because if there's one thing that this government always touts as one of its wins, is the fact that the removal of subsidy has made more funds available to pay the governors. In fact, they put the figures $20 billion. Another senator, Senator Adela, says we saved 10 trillion naira from this removal of subsidy. But yet, contractors are being owed. All the other operations, ministries, they are not getting the adequate funding. Someone is clearly lying to us, Mr. Akintobi.
Pensioners are not getting their money either. And some salaries are not being paid on time as they. Well, that's the argument, is that the subsidy savings.
Not complaining.
No, the subsidy savings goes to the governors, is what they're saying. So it's as if the federal government is trying to say, well, we don't have any additional extra money, which is not true, because they don't give all of the subsidy savings to the governors. They retain some. So definitely there's there's a lacuna somewhere between receipts and payments. Who is shading the truth, we don't know. But if you look at the amount we save from subsidy and our normal earnings anyway, in terms of all of our oil exports, the revenue that's accruing to the government, taxation, all of that, we have a lot more money at hand than what our expenditure is. So there shouldn't be issues in terms of settling outstanding obligations. It breaks the heart when you see contractors protesting outside National Assembly and shutting down the FCT ministry because they are owed trillions of naira in past due obligations. And you ask yourself, what is this, an administrative snafu? Is it being caused by bureaucratic red tape that is stopping the payment vouchers from going from one desk to another? Have we not automated our systems now to a point whereby by the time a project is being completed and the completion certificate is signed, everything should be online and everything should be automated in such a way that payments are not delayed? So the question becomes, are these subsidy savings true? Look at, for example, a report that came out about our foreign reserve is $49 billion, which is double or triple what it was back in 2023. We're saving money hand over foot because we're making more money every day. But it's not reflecting in our administrative competence in terms of what we need to do that requires money, which is why the National Assembly was making this threat to the Accountant General, who, like you said, doesn't really have much control. But bottom line, like you said, is there's a gap somewhere. What is causing that problem? Is it that the receipts are not what they say they are? Or is it that the expenses are way more than what they say they are?
To be fair, Mr. Ogojimi actually gave an insight. I know there are some things you have to say with wisdom.
Yeah, of course.
So this is what he said. He explained that, see, my office can only disburse funds that are formally released to the office.
Exactly.
In essence, saying that, see, the flow is not coming from where the flow is meant to come. So clearly, the money is either not there or someone is holding on to it, and we obviously know what the answer to this is.
Okay, so
because I don't believe maybe the network challenge or the software challenge is a thing, but obviously that's not what's causing it.
Okay, so let's trace it. Who releases to the Accountant General's office? Ministry of Finance?
Ministry of Finance, of course, with collaboration with CBN.
So who releases to Ministry of Finance? CBN.
Well, I think it's Ministry of Finance that activates everything. The CBN can now pay straight to.
But the money goes into the Treasury single
Yes,
account.
every Treasury.
So
the Treasury cannot just release money until it is approved.
Yes.
And they say release the money.
So
you can be seeing the money, but you can't do anything about it.
So who approves?
So clearly, it's either there isn't enough money in the TSA, as we used to say there was, because if there is enough money, then it should be released through that mechanism all the way to the Office of the Accountant General, who then signs off for either the contractor, the MDAs, and all of that. So someone is not telling Nigerians the truth.
And he also added, there's a part that he added about what is compounding the problem, the fact that noting that many fail to remit collected revenues, MDAs, they fail to remit collected revenues or taxes and award contracts that are now fully backed by cash. So monies are not available. These MDAs are busy awarding contracts for monies maybe it's been appropriated for because appropriation means there's a spending limit. Don't go beyond this. You must spend XYZ within this fiscal year.
Yes.
But we also forget as citizens that performance of budget is based on first availability of funds, which is what is highlighting here. Is that taxes and revenues that these ministries are collecting.
They are not remitting.
But I thought there's supposed to be a treasury single account. But government bureaucracy, I don't work in civil service. They understand how these things work. So first there has to be money generated, coming into the account.
Yes.
Then before we can talk of releases.
Yes.
And those releases sometimes maybe 50%, maybe 60%, maybe 40%, based on two things. First, if the monies are available.
Right.
Two, the bureaucratic bottlenecks
that issue
and prioritization of the government per time.
Absolutely. That issue of remitting to the TSA, very important. Look, for example, NNPCL yesterday declared fantastic profits like we've never seen before. But not too long ago, they were accused of not remitting anything to the central purse. It's through the TSA. So now they've declared profits. Is the money going to come from them?
And in addition to that, the customs also declared, surpassing its target for 2025, and it's in fact making a projection for, surpassing that target yet again for 2026. So if the customs is declaring an abundance of resources, non-oil revenue this time, why are we at this juncture where contractors are being owed, where projects are not being executed because of paucity of funds? Definitely, there are more questions to be asked of remittances to the Federation account.
Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Kisobi, I don't know whether we have time for more, but let's see. Yes, there's a part I wanted to highlight before I let you go. Yes, just beneath that big story, where it says, Senate, real-time results transmission does not translate to e-voting. Because I know that some people mistaking result transmission for e-voting. Say, where does it happen? We don't do e-voting. As a matter of fact, we accredit electronically, we vote manually. We're supposed to transmit electronically and collate manually. So this is important for the Senate to highlight, although a lot of us disagree with their position because they are solving a non-existent problem. What's your take?
Well, why don't we just make everything electronic? I think. I mean, if we can accredit electronically, then we vote manually. Why can't we go and push a button and vote? And then
that's a tall order.
Yeah, it's a very tall order, especially with the infrastructure as limited as it is, not robust enough already as it is to even just do electronic transmission of votes. But yeah, e-voting is futuristic, but I don't think it's something we should dismiss outright. But clearly, this distinction should be made that electronic transmission of results is something entirely different from e-voting. There's still, the majority of the process is still manual. The part that is electronic is still very limited to just those two elements. And I would say that anything that would lend credibility to the elections, any process that would lend credibility and give transparency is what we should all adopt.
Yeah, I know we're supposed to even maintain a national electronic register of election results according to section 63, 60 subsection 3 in the old law. And I was reading the Supreme Court judgment the other day, and I found out that, Mr. Kisobi, to be very fair, guys, if you don't win election, especially presidential election, on the field, to obtain it in court,
Tough.
I don't want to be absolute, so let me say borderline impossible.
Tough.
Because if you look at the judgment of court, it will say first you have to establish non-compliance. Non-compliance you have to establish. Then the second part is that you have to establish how non-compliance could have
Altered
the outcome
Right.
of that election.
Yeah.
And the judge even said at that point it's not legal, it's not rhetoric, it's not grammar. They use those words. They say it boils down to number. They were advising the lawyers, if you don't have numbers, whatever you're saying here, you don't have a case at all. I'm quoting literally verbatim what the judge said. So this is why I'm thinking to myself, 176,000 polling units, over 8,000 wards across the country. I think we should begin to look at our law such that, but it's going to border around maybe disenfranchising people for being able to be elected. Not every political party can be part of a presidential election. That is the truth. In fact, right now, I can dare say not up to 5 parties can effectively, because if you have polling officers across all the states, you know what that means? It's a lot of money.
There should be standards put in place.
So,
that if you don't reach this particular criteria, you can't present.
So that's why the whole shout, some of us are shouting about electronic transmission, is because the guidelines are basically subsidiary delegated or informal, we call it inferior legislation. We want to elevate it to an act of parliament, which is next to the ground norm, the constitution. So it's no longer the liberty and the the latitude discretion of INEC is totally removed in the question. So you must chakam, I call it the chakam effect. You must snap that thing so that when we go to the collation center in case abracadabra happens, we all have the results. We can now say what happened here, although it's not a collation portal.
Right. All hope is not lost on that yet, because on Monday the harmonization committee is going to meet between the committee that the House and
conference
the Senate.
committee.
Yes, the conference committee to harmonize the two versions. And of course, because in the House of Representatives version, they passed mandatory transmission, electronic transmission in real time.
Yeah.
They passed that. So hopefully common sense will prevail.
That should be done in side by side with the physical collation.
Yes. So hopefully that conference committee will.
Okay.
So our hope is not lost.
We hope it's the Murtala kind of hope.
And just before we go, Mr. Akintobi, it's Valentine's tomorrow.
Love is in the
How did
air.
we get here?
Love is in the air.
From electronic transmission of results to Valentine.
I'll explain. I have a perfect explanation.
Okay.
When we talk Valentine's, it's usually, couples, colleagues sometimes. But please, what is the perfect Valentine's gift from Nigeria to Nigerians and vice versa? Is there anything is that something we can also accommodate?
Yes, absolutely.
Section 60, subsection 3.
It's both ways. From Nigeria to Nigerians and Nigerians to Nigeria. Because love is meant to be a two-way traffic. I shouldn't be facing one way.
We've done too much for Nigeria. Nigeria needs to do much for Nigeria.
Let's have it.
What's your take?
Yeah. Why not tomorrow, the 14th of February, Valentine's Day? Why doesn't each and every Nigerian tell another Nigerian, I love you? A stranger on the street. Just show love to somebody you don't know. And let's spread the love. And it'll come round in a circle. Pass it forward.
I think we're trying to tell you to give us an answer that has to do with governance issues.
But I think this is great as well.
I know that's what you were looking for, but we talked about Nigeria in general. Let's show each other some love, and love will come back to us. Yes,
we're great people.
We are.
We're great people. It's just that we've not been blessed with the right set of leadership successively. With greatest sense of respect to everyone who has done their part. But we're great people.
Well, I'll settle for a box of chocolates and some 12 roses, a dozen roses and a box of chocolates.
Bukola is sitting by your side, but we'll talk about that later.
It's Valentine's Day, so you might as well add your gifts to the list that
you're collecting today.
Not collecting.
You're not the only gal on this
From Jeffrey Cardi, the guy's back end, and yours too.
Okay.
Dayo Akintobi is a public affairs analyst and a journalist joining us. Always a delight, sir. Have a great weekend. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We'll take a break and we'll segue into that conversation around national issues, whether it's budget, whether it's the electronic transmission, Electoral Act amendment. let's just potpourri all of it and see how it goes from here. Thank you for staying with us. We'll be right back in just a moment.